I feel like it wasn't all that long ago since I said things can always get worse. And if for some metaphysical reason you required further evidence of this, China bans under 18s from playing online games for more than an hour per day. Well, there you go then. China. Communists, well, communists, I do suppose. This is as a follow-up to the whole article written in a Chinese governmental newspaper, stating that video games were a spiritual opium, and that entire generations of children were being turned into mind-addled, lunatic, maniac, retarded Asperger's vegetables. By video games. Obviously. Why not? And that the government really had to step in and do something about this spreading epidemic. Never mind the Voldemort virus. That one's fine, but video games? Oh, that could ruin the entirety of China's glorious future, obviously. Online gaming companies will force users to register to play under their real identities. Very nice there. Very forward thinking, absolutely. Very progressive, in fact. Hell, the whole debacle yesterday about the Fortnite nonsense, guess what the proposed solution was to that? China leading the way as always. And under 18s will only be allowed to play between 8 and 9 p.m. on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and public holidays. The generosity simply will not end, will it? The Chinese government has banned underage from playing online games, and the ban will be enforced by online gaming companies required by law, of course, which are now required to strictly enforce rules requiring users to register accounts with their real identities in order to play. This being announced, of course, by state media, having branded them spiritual opium, as people spend a whole 8 hours a day playing video games. 8 hours, can you imagine? Hell, I've had individual sessions longer than that in all due likelihood. But no, this is a very, very serious problem, and it threatens the very future of China's productivity. Wait, hold on. We said the quiet part out loud. It threatens our children. Yes, that's more correct. Not merely just the cogs in our machinery, yet it doesn't end there either. Oh, no. In addition to these new restrictions on playtime, President Winnie the Pooh indicated during a committee meeting that there would be additional anti-monopoly policies meant to curtail the disorderly expansion of large tech and improve China's economy. Something tells me that China is looking over at the West and going, hold on, how much power does Facebook, Twitter, and Google have? Right, maybe we should put in place some restrictions, just to get ahead of the curve there as well. Unironically, China leading the charge yet again. Communism, not even once. And this has been a long time coming, too. This started about a good year or two ago, when they started to kind of hint at these things. Like, okay, we'll be introducing some restrictions. We'll keep people playing only X amount of hours on work days. Make sure that the study time is taken into account here. Then we introduced facial recognition software to check that you are really you, to check that you're actually, the person you claim to be. Otherwise, you might indulge in far too much freedom and fun, which obviously we wouldn't want. Then we had a little bit of a social credit score system, another nice and progressive thing that far too many lunatics have been arguing for over here in the West as well. God help us when that seemingly inevitably becomes a thing over here too, probably combined some way or shape or form with the Voldemort virus restrictions. And now, finally, we have arrived at what I would guess would be the logical endpoint. 3 hours per week on weekends only. Oh, and again, public holidays, obviously. 1 hour. 1 hour still. 1 hour on public holidays to really get that celebratory spirit going. But don't stay indoor too long. We need you out to follow the parades. And people wonder why China is probably the best example of a straight-up fascist country in our day and age. What was that saying again? Fascism is merely honest socialism. You can see where they're coming from, can't you? And of course, this will affect us too. That's the worst part of it. This will not merely be a China thing, because of course all of these big companies are desperately trying to get in to China. The Steam China version, right now only the companies like Tencent, the de facto state-owned companies, are required to enforce this in online games, specifically the mobile games. The Clash of Kings, I believe, was the example they kept bringing up as a spiritual opium addiction. But Steam China will eventually be forced to abide with these restrictions as well, like they have already been forced to abide by restrictions on chat rooms. Steam China will not have forums or discussion groups because, well, unwanted elements of the populace may organize in such places. You wouldn't want that now, would you? And eventually the companies that are trying to get into China, remember again, you are not allowed to release a game in China unless you are approved by the Chinese censorship regulators. Companies like Creative Assembly, who have been bending over backwards to fit into the Chinese market, beginning, for example, to translate patch notes into Mandarin, they will either have to abide by whatever restrictions, bearing in mind right now it's only on online games, whether or not that will apply to a game like Total War. Well, in-game chat would have to be removed, but it might be able to skate past the other restrictions. And then the question becomes, what kind of a principled stance will these companies take? We've talked about this several times before, but now that this must be the logical end point of draconian properties, right? Can it get worse? Well, it could be 1 hour a week, I guess. Or simply just a blanket ban. They'll scan your face before you're allowed in-game, and if you're under 18, you're simply just not allowed to play. When will companies take a stance against this? Well, I imagine some of them might now. Disorderly expansion of large tech. Maybe we'll suddenly see Google and Facebook go, actually, this isn't right. You're stopping us from expanding uncontrolled? We have a principled stance against that. Hell, I might even embrace it at this point. It'll be beneficial in some ways, won't it? Companies need to now start pulling out of China. They need to refuse to do business with Chinese companies. Companies like Riot are already done. Riot is owned by Tencent, but Epic, the only correct thing Epic could do right now is to buy out Tencent, remove them from the company, say, no, we will not abide by Chinese money in our companies, because they are clearly anti-freedom. Hell, I would honestly prefer it if the government went so far as to say this, because the Chinese government is, you're not allowed to do business in China without a Chinese partner actually doing the business for you. I see absolutely no reason whatsoever why the West should not play by the exact same rules. Do unto others as you want them to do unto you. That one works the other way around too. Corporations that are moving into China should be punished. They should be disincentivized, rather heavily so, to do so, because this is an awful country. And the worst part is, I hate it, because every Chinese person I've met, every Chinese person I've talked to and know are awesome people. And hell, again, bring it back to Total War. Who were the ones who stood up to Creative Assembly when they decided to start trying to ban sexy mods? The Chinese people. In so many ways, they can call out the bullshit that we can't. It is absurd. We are now in a time when an incredibly oppressive regime like this is more free in certain respects than we in the West are. And yet at the same time, we have freedoms that they do not have either. It used to be an argument of liberty, of Western ideals, of freedoms, versus what we viewed as the oppressive nations of Russia, of China, totalitarian states. And yet what's happening now? Russia is putting in a blanket ban on any discrimination against people who won't take the Voldemort vaccine. They're saying that no, you can't fire them. You can't determine their employment status based on this. And you can't keep them out of restaurants, etc. Meanwhile, in France, they are scanning people's Papieren bitte at bloody restaurants. What a backward-ass world we live in. Holy shit. Communism. Once more. Never even once. I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.